Hello, wanderer. It's Ufan. Come in. Tonight, I'm going to try something that shouldn't work. I'm going to tell you about the coldest night of a man's life, a night with every reason in it to give up, and I'm going to use it to carry you gently down into sleep. There's a question hidden in here, and I won't answer it. Only the ending can. When the cold has taken everything the cold can take, what is the reason that lets you bear the night? I don't know who this story is for, but I'm telling it from the heart, hoping it touches you the way it changed me and gave me sweet rest at night. Let's begin. So let the day fall away. Let your breath find that slow, deep place it knows how to find, the one that waits for you, patient as an old fire. I'll meet you there. High on the side of a mountain there is a cabin. Inside the cabin there is one room, and in the room there is a fire, a small fire, and an old one, built up and let down 1,000 nights before this one. It breathes in the dark, it flares just a little when the wind leans on the door, and then it settles again, low and orange and patient, and the light of it moves slowly along the walls. Let it set the pace if you like. There's no hurry here, nowhere, tonight, that either of us has to be. It is not a large room, and it does not need to be. There is the fire and the low bed beside it. There is a table worn pale and smooth in the places where hands have rested. There is a shelf of plain things, a cup, a bowl, a knife, a tin that once held tea and now holds smaller things a man keeps without quite knowing why. There is a single window, its glass thick and a little uneven, and beyond it the dark, and the snow beginning to move in the dark. The walls are old wood, gone the color of honey in the firelight, and they hold the day's warmth the way old wood does, slowly and let it go slowly, so that the room is never quite as cold as the night thinks it should be. The smell of the place is wood smoke and pine and the clean mineral cold that finds its way in and around the edges of the door, no matter how well the door is hung. It is the smell of a place that has been lived in a long time, by someone who is gentle with it. Above the reach of the firelight, the ceiling goes dark, the beams crossing overhead, heavy and close, the shadows between them deepening the higher you look, until the roof itself is just a darkness you take on faith. You don't have to look up there yet, for now there is only the fire, and the low gold light, and the warmth that has gathered in close around it like something asleep. If your eyes are still open, you might let them grow heavy here, in the warm part of the room where the light is. There is nothing in the dark above that needs you tonight. There is a man in the cabin, and he is alone. He moves through the last small tasks of the evening, the way you move through things your hands have done 1,000 times, without needing to watch them. He takes the cup down from the shelf and rinses it in the little water left warm by the stove, and turns it in his hands to dry it, and sets it back in its place. He folds the cloth over the rail. He runs his thumb once along the edge of the table as he passes, not because it needs anything, but because it is there, and his hand knows it, the way your hand knows the rail of a stair you have climbed your whole life in the dark. He does not hurry, and he does not waste time. He has the unhurried economy of someone who has learned that there is exactly enough time for the things that must be done, and that the doing of them slowly is itself a kind of company. Then he sees the wood. The stack beside the fireplace has burned lower than he meant it to. There is enough for an hour, perhaps two, but not enough to carry a fire through a whole long night, and the night by the sound of the snow at the glass is going to be a long one. So he will have to go out for more wood. He looks at the door for a moment, the way you look at a cold lake before you swim in it. Then he takes the heavy coat down from its peg and puts it on, and the scarf, and turns up the collar and crosses to the door. And there he stops. He rests one hand flat against the old wood of the frame, the way you might lay a hand on the shoulder of something long familiar, and he stands a moment and breathes once, slow, the warm air of the room going down into him, and then he lifts the latch and opens the door to the night. The night comes in all at once. The cold does not arrive the way warmth arrives, by degrees. It is simply there, total, the instant the door is open, the clean, hard smell of snow, the air so cold it has an edge to it, the kind of cold that lays its hand flat against your face and presses, gently, to find out what you are made of. He steps into it, and his boots find the snow, and the snow is already deeper than it was an hour ago, soft and dry, and squeaking faintly underfoot, and the world beyond the small gold square of the doorway is enormous and dark and falling. He does not go far, only to the woodpile, under the eaves a few steps from the door. But in those few steps the night is all around him, above him the snow coming down out of a sky he cannot see, each flake appearing only at the last moment in the light from the door, gold for an instant and then landing and going white among the rest, below him the snow rising over the tops of his boots, and all around him the mountain, vast and patient and indifferent, breathing its long cold breath down through the pines. He gathers the wood. He works by feel as much as by sight, his hands closing around each length, knocking the snow from it, judging its weight and its dryness, settling it into the crook of his arm. The logs are cold all the way through, and rough with bark, and they smell of resin and frost. He takes more than he thinks he needs, because a man who has wintered here a long time knows that the night always asks for more than you think. His breath clouds white in front of him and is carried off by the wind. Behind him, through the open door, the fire is a small warm thing in a great dark cold, and he is aware of it there, the way you are always a little aware of the warm thing that is waiting for you, and the awareness is its own kind of warmth. And that is when he finds it. He has reached for one more log, low on the pile, in the lee of the stack where the wind cannot quite reach, and his hand stops. Because there, tucked against the wood, out of the worst of it, is a small bird, brown and plain, and no bigger than the curve of his hand. It has come down out of the storm to the only shelter it could find, the way small things do, and it is barely moving now. Its feathers are rimed with fine snow, its eyes are half closed, its small chest rises and falls and rises again, so faintly that he has to go very still and watch and wait to be sure it is moving at all. He crouches there in the snow and looks at it for a long moment. He could leave it, he knows that. The cold does this every winter to 1,000 small things all across the mountain, and the mountain does not grieve a single one of them, and the morning does not ask after them, and no one in the whole world would ever know that he had crouched here and seen and gone back into his fire. It is a small thing. It is the smallest thing. There is no reason that he could name to do anything at all. But his hands are already moving. He sets the wood down carefully in the snow, and he works one bare hand in under the bird, slowly, the way you would lift water you did not want to spill, and he cups the other hand over it, not closing, just sheltering, and he lifts it up out of the cold. It weighs almost nothing. That is the first thing. So little that for a moment he is not sure he is holding anything at all, only the cold of its feathers against his palm and, somewhere under the cold, very faint, a small quick warmth like a coal nearly gone out. He brings it in against his chest, inside the coat, out of the wind. He gathers the wood again under the other arm, and he turns and steps back through the gold doorway and pushes the door shut behind him with his shoulder, and the night is closed out, and the warmth folds back over him like water closing over your head. He sets the wood down by the fireplace. He does not go straight to the fire. He knows, the way he knows the edge of the table and the lift of the latch, that you cannot bring a frozen thing straight to the heat, that the heat, too soon, can hurt it as badly as the cold did. So he sits down on the floor near the fire, but not in it, in the warm middle distance, and settles his back against the side of the bed, and opens his hands a little, there in his lap, and looks at the small life he has carried out of the dark. In the firelight he can see it better now. The fine barring of its feathers, the impossible thinness of its folded legs, the closed crescents of its eyes. The snow on it is already melting, beading into tiny drops that catch the light. He does not move. He lets the warmth of the room reach it on its own, by degrees the way warmth should come, first the warmth of the air, and then the slow warmth rising off his own skin, cupped close around it like a second gentler fire. He does not speak to it, he does not name it, or wonder where it came from, or ask himself again why he bothered. He simply holds it, and he breathes. And slowly, without his deciding it, his own breathing begins to settle, deep and even and unhurried, the way breath does when your whole attention has narrowed all the way down to one small living thing and the keeping of it. The fire rises, his chest rises with it, the fire settles, he lets the breath go, and he waits. He has nowhere to be. He has all night. And having all night, with nothing in it but this, is not a burden to him. It is close to the opposite of a burden. So he sits and breathes and keeps the small cold thing cupped in the warmth of his hands and watches for any change at all. For a long time there is none. And then, so slight he might have imagined it, a feather shifts, and then another, and the small body, which had been utterly still, makes the smallest possible adjustment, a settling, the way you settle deeper into a bed. And then, slowly, the half-closed eyes open. They open, and they find him, a black bead of an eye, catching one point of firelight, looking up out of his cupped hands at the great dark shape of the face above it. And it does not startle, and then, for a moment nothing more, the fire moves its slow light across them both, gold and shadow and gold again, and in that light the small bird simply rests in his open hands, not leaving, not yet staying, held in the long suspended breath between the two. And the man waits. He does not move. He does not close his hands, or bring it nearer the fire, or do any of the things a person does when they want to hurry an outcome toward themselves. He lets the moment be exactly as long as it needs to be, and asks nothing of it, and the firelight rises and falls over the both of them, slow, like something breathing in its sleep. And then the tiny chest, which had been barely moving, begins to move more surely. In and out and in. The warmth has reached it, Somewhere in itself, in whatever small place a living thing decides such things, it is deciding to stay. He feels it the way you feel a tide turn, not as an event, but as a direction. The cold going out of the feathers, the warmth coming up to meet his hands instead of taking from them. The quick small heart, which he could not feel before, now faintly knocking against his fingers, fast and certain and alive. He stays like that a while longer, even after he is sure. There is no reason to rush the putting down of a thing once you have gone to the trouble of the lifting up. Then, when he is certain it will live, he makes it a place. He takes the folded cloth from the rail, the same soft, clean cloth, and shapes it into a small hollow near the fireplace, close enough to be warm, far enough to be safe from any spark, and lowers the bird into it as carefully as he lifted it, and opens his hands and lets it go. It does not fly. It is far too tired to fly. It only shifts once in the warm fold of cloth and tucks its head down into its feathers and goes still. But it is the stillness of sleep now, not the other stillness, and the difference between the two is the whole of what he went out into the cold for, though he would not put it that way, and does not put it any way at all. Only then does the man see to himself. He builds the fire up a little for the night, not high, just enough, laying on two of the cold logs he carried in, watching the flames find them and take hold, and then he banks it down and turns the small light of the room lower and lies down at last on the low bed beside it, under the blankets that have been waiting there for him all this while. They are heavy blankets, wool and old quilt, heavy with the smell of wood smoke and with the warmth of 100 winters folded down into them. He draws them up, and their weight comes down over him, that good weight, the kind that presses you, softly, down and down, until the bed seems to hold you the way the ground holds a stone that has finally found its place and will not be rolling any further. You can feel that weight too, if you let yourself. The pull of the blankets, the give of the bed beneath you, the particular heaviness that comes into the legs first, and then the arms, and then, last, the long muscles of the back, each of them letting go of a holding on you didn't quite know they were doing. The day can set itself down now. There is nothing left in it that needs you. Whatever you carried into this night, you can lay it down, for now in the warmth. The warmth from the fire reaches the bed in a slow, even tide. The snow goes on at the glass, softer now, or seeming softer, and in the small hollow of cloth by the fireplace, a heart that would have stopped out there in the dark goes on beating, quietly, near the fire. The man's eyes, growing heavy, go where tired eyes go, up, up past the warm gold reach of the firelight, up into the dark where the heavy beams cross close overhead, and there, where two of the old roof boards do not quite meet, his gaze settles on a seam. A thin line in the dark, no wider than a thread. The one place in the whole tight roof where the night has left a mark of itself, a faint sliver of paler grey. The cold light of the snow-filled sky, leaking down into the warm. It is nothing, a flaw in an old roof. The kind of thing a man notices 1,000 times across 1,000 nights and never once thinks about, because there is nothing to think about. It is a gap, and gaps are what old roofs have, and in the morning he will not remember having seen it. He notices it now only because he is lying still and warm and tired in the good way, and because there is a small heart beating near the fire that he carried in out of the dark with his own two hands, and because the night is very long, and the line is there, faint and silver, directly above the place where he lies. He does not ask it for anything. He does not wonder about it. He just lets it be a thing that is there in the world while he is here, in the warm, a thin thread of cold light in a dark ceiling, above a man and a bird and a fire, on a mountain in the snow. The fire rises, and his breath rises, the fire settles, and his breath lets go, and the thin line of light waits quietly in the dark above him, for nothing, for now. For a while there is only this, the fire, burned down now to a steadier, lower flame, the big movements gone out of it, only the slow red work of the coals and the small blue flicker where the last log has caught. The bird, asleep on its fold of cloth by the fireplace, a soft brown curve no bigger than a closed hand, its head tucked down and out of sight, lifting and falling with the smallest breath there is. The man, lying still beneath the heavy blankets on the low bed, his eyes half open in the dark, not looking at anything, not waiting for anything. And around all of it, the snow going on and on and on against the glass, the way it has all evening and the way it will go all night, patient and endless and soft. It is later than it was. You can feel that, even in here, even without a clock, the particular deepening that happens in the small hours, when the night stops arriving and simply is, when the cold outside has settled all the way into the bones of the world and stopped pushing, because there is nothing left for it to take that it has not already taken. The room has gone quiet in the way a room goes quiet when everything in it has come to rest. The man's body has stopped its small adjustments. His breathing has found its slow floor and stayed there. The storm is fuller now than it was. The wind has finished making up its mind in the high pines and come all the way down to the cabin. It leans on the walls, finds the corners, pushes its long cold breath against the door and the shutters, looking the way wind does, for the one gap it has not yet tried. But the door holds, the fire holds, and the strange thing, the thing he notices without quite noticing it, is that the sound of it all, the wind and the snow and the slow deep creak of the old beams taking the weight of the night, has begun to grow softer in him, not quieter. It is not quieter. If anything, the storm is louder than it was an hour ago. But it has stopped reaching him. It arrives at the walls and stays there, like something that knows it is not invited in. He is no longer out at the edges of himself, pressed up against the walls, listening for what the weather will do next. He has let the edges go. He has drawn back from them, the way you draw your hands back into your sleeves in the cold, and gone in, further in than the walls, further in than the fire, to the warm, small room at the center of a person where the weather has never once been able to follow. And in that room, tonight, there is someone with him. Because the fire has put him in mind of another fire, he does not reach for the memory. That is not how it comes. It comes the way warmth itself comes, by degrees, from somewhere he was not looking, reaching him before he knows it has begun. One moment there is only the firelight on the walls, and the next there is a kitchen, years ago, and the particular cold of a different winter coming off a black window pane, and the yellow light of a lamp, and a woman standing at the stove with her back to him. His wife, he sees her the way you see things that have been kept somewhere safe and dark a long time, whole and clear, and a little dim at the very edges. She is warming her hands at the stove. And there it is, the thing he had forgotten he knew. The particular way she had of lifting her shoulders when she was cold, drawing them up toward her ears, holding them there a moment as though bracing against the whole of the winter, and then, when the warmth finally reached her, letting them drop, slowly, all at once, a long loosening, like a held breath finally let go. He hasn't thought of that in years. Not that exact small thing. And here it is, perfect, as though it had been set aside and saved for him for precisely this night, a night cold enough that he would finally have need of it. And once he has that one, the others come. The way she could never get her hands warm, hers were always cold, even in summer, a thing they used to laugh about, and the way she would come up behind him on the worst nights and slip them, without warning, under his collar, flat against the back of his neck, just to hear him startle. He can feel it now, that small shock of cold, more clearly than he can feel the warm bed beneath him, her cold hands at his neck, and his own pretend complaint, and her laugh behind him, low and pleased with itself, while he gave her, without ever once deciding to, the warmth she had come to take. She gave him the cold, he gave her the warmth. They had done it 1,000 times and never once called it anything, and only now, lying here, does he see what a small and perfect thing it was, the whole of a marriage, maybe, folded down into a pair of cold hands and a warm neck and a winter night. And her voice. Not words at first, only the sound of it, the cadence of her talking to him while her back was turned and her hands were busy, the rise and the fall of it, the way she would let a sentence trail off because she knew he had caught her meaning before she reached the end of it. And then one thing she used to say, surfacing whole out of all the years, how she would look at the dark coming down at the window of an evening, and the snow just beginning, and say, not sadly, never sadly, there it goes again, as though the winter were an old and difficult friend who could be counted on to arrive, and to be born, and in time to pass. There it goes again. The fire shifts, a small settling, the last of the log giving way, and for a moment he is in both places. The remembered kitchen and this one. The wind at the old window and the wind at this one. The distance between them is not as wide as it once was. And then, rising up underneath all of it, a whole night comes back to him. A night like this one. Years ago, he could not say how many, and it does not matter. Memory keeps the warm ones loose, untied from their dates. A storm like this one, perhaps a worse one, the wind finding every corner of the house, the windows gone white and blind, the two of them, and a fire, and no way out, and nowhere they had to be. He remembers being younger then, and not yet easy with a storm. He remembers some part of him still braced against it, still listening at the walls the way he had listened at them earlier tonight, before he let the edges go. There was a part of him, in those years, that took a storm as a thing to be survived, an enemy at the door, a night to be gotten through with his jaw set. And he remembers her noticing, the way she always noticed. She had looked up at the sound of the wind, and then over at him, and she had not told him there was nothing to fear. She was never a person who told you things you would only half believe. She had only said it, the way she said it every winter, looking back down at her hands, there it goes again. And then she had gone on with whatever small thing she was doing, as if the great roaring dark outside were no more than weather, because that, in the end, was all it was. And something in the sheer unbothered ordinariness of it had reached him where no reassurance ever could have. The storm was not an emergency. It had never been an emergency. It was only the winter, arriving the way the winter always arrives, the way it had arrived 1,000 times before either of them was born, and would go on arriving 1,000 times after. You did not fight a winter. You could not fight a winter. You kept the fire, and you kept each other, and you let the night do what it had come to do, and in the morning it was done, and the world was white and silent and new. He had learnt that from her, on a night he can no longer date. In a single sentence, she probably forgot she had said. And he is using it tonight, alone, the way you go on using a warmth for years after the fire that first gave it to you has burned all the way down. He lets himself stay there with her. There is nowhere else he has to be. He has the whole long night and nothing in it he would rather do. And slowly, in the warm dark, with his eyes half closed and the firelight moving on the walls, it stops being only a memory. It becomes, he could not say what to call it, and would not try, a kind of company. She is not a picture he is holding at arm's length and looking at. She is here in the way that matters, as near as the heat on his face. He can almost hear what she would say if she were lying beside him now in the dark. He knows it the way you know the next line of a song you have been singing your whole life. He would tell her about the bird. That is the first thing. He knows it before the conversation has even begun. And the knowing of it makes him smile, there in the dark. He would tell her how he went out for the last of the wood, and found the small frozen thing tucked in the lee of the pile, and how he had crouched there a moment in the snow, knowing he could leave it, and how he had not left it, and how it is sleeping now in a fold of cloth by the fire. And she would not be surprised. That is the thing about her he had half forgotten and is glad, now, to have back. She would not even look up from whatever her hands were doing. She would only make some small, dry remark, you and your strays, in that voice that pretended to scold and never for one moment meant it. The voice she kept for the thing she loved most in him and would never once have said plainly. And he would let her have the last word, the way he always had, because being teased by her was its own kind of being held. And maybe, after a while, in the quiet that came after, she would have said the truer thing underneath it, that it was a good thing he had done, going out into the cold for something that could give him nothing back. She had believed in that. Small kindnesses spent on things that could not repay them. She had said once that you could tell everything you needed to know about a person by what they did when no one would ever know they had done it. He had not quite understood her at the time. He thinks tonight that he is beginning to. Because it was hers, really, he sees that now too. The gentleness that moved his hands out there tonight, before he had decided anything at all, that was something he had learned beside her, slowly, across all those winters, until it stopped being a thing he chose to do, and became, somewhere along the way, simply a thing he was. She is the reason there is a small warm bird asleep by the fire tonight, and not a small cold shape still out there in the snow. She has been gone from this room a long time, and she is in everything this room contains. He finds that his mouth has curved in the dark into a smile at a joke she has not made, in a conversation that is not happening, with a woman who is not here. and it does not feel like losing her. That is the strange grace of it, the thing he could never have explained to anyone and has stopped trying to explain even to himself. It does not feel like loss. It feels like being kept company on a long, cold night. He does not fight the ache that comes threaded through it. He knows that ache, he has known it a long time. He does not pretend that it isn't there. He only lets it sit beside the warmth, the way the cold sits just outside the door, close and real and unable to come in, because he understands something now, the way you understand things in the warm dark without ever turning them into thoughts, that the storm can take the woodpile and the road and the feeling from his hands and the whole white world beyond the walls. But it cannot reach this. This was never outside for it to take. He has been carrying it the entire time, into every winter there ever was, tucked warm against the center of himself, the same way an hour ago he carried a small living thing in out of the cold against his chest. A warm thing the storm cannot touch, because he has never once set it down in a place where the storm could find it. His eyes, drifting now, find the seam again. The thin line of pale light in the dark ceiling directly above the place where he lies. Only now it is not a flaw in a roof. He is too far down towards sleep for it to be a flaw in a roof. Now the way the mind does when it is loosening, letting go of the small hard facts of things one at a time, his eye begins to travel along that line, slowly, idly, the way you trail a finger along a windowsill without thinking, and the line begins to lengthen and to mean something, and to become a road, a pale road. He can see it now more clearly than he can see the ceiling. A thin, pale road running off straight across a dark country. The kind of road you see from very high up, very late, when the whole land below has gone to sleep and only the road still catches what little light there is. It runs out across dark fields and dark hills, over rivers he cannot name, past farmhouses with their lamps long out, through villages where every window is dark and every chimney is cold, through the snow that is falling there too, the same snow, the one snow, falling on the whole sleeping world at once. And far off, so far that it is only a point, only a single warm grain of light at the very end of everything, there is one window lit, and he knows, in the certain and effortless way you know things in the last clear moment before sleep, exactly where that road goes, and who is at the end of it, sitting up late in a small lit room, warming her cold hands. He does not have to travel it. That is the thing he understands, lying there, going down. He does not have to rise, or dress, or open the door, or cross a single mile of that dark and freezing country. The road is already open. It runs out of this one small room, up through the seam in the roof, across the whole dark sleeping world, all the way to her, and he can follow it with nothing but his eyes half closing, lying warm and still beneath the blankets, and arrive, and be with her, and never once leave the fire. The cabin is one room. He had thought, on harder nights than this one, that it was a small place to spend a life. But a room you can leave like this, without rising, without the door, without crossing any cold at all, was never really as small as its four walls. The walls are only where the cold stops. They were never where he stops. Can I tell you something, wanderer? I do this too. There's a face I keep, the way he keeps hers, and on the nights the sleep won't come, I'll find it there in the dark and talk to it a little. I used to think that was a sad thing to admit. I don't think so anymore. I've started to think it might be the warmest thing we do. The wind leans on the cabin. The fire answers it, low and steady and unhurried, asking nothing, giving what it has. The bird sleeps on by the fireplace. And the man lies there in the middle of it all, with the road of light above him and the nearness of her all around him. And his breathing goes slow, and then slower still. You can let yours go with it if you like. There is nothing here that needs you to stay awake for it. The fire will keep. The bird will keep. The snow will fall whether you watch it fall or not. Whatever you carried in with you tonight, you can let it lie down now in the warm, the way he has let the day lie down, the way the whole tired world outside is lying itself down under the snow. His body has gone heavy in the good way, the legs first, then the arms, then, last of all, the back, letting go slowly all the way down until nothing in him is holding on at all. The watch is set down. There is nothing here tonight that needs guarding. The cold is outside, where it has always been, and everything that matters is in here, in the warm, where it has always been, where he has kept it the whole time, without once having to try. The fire rises, the breath rises, the fire settles, and he lets it all the way go. For a long while then there is only the going down, the fire low and red, the bird a small breathing curve by the fireplace, the man stretched warm beneath the heavy blankets, his eyes closed now, or nearly, his breath gone slow and even and deep, down at that floor of breathing where the day finally lets go of you and the body forgets, for a while, that it was ever holding anything at all. The snow at the glass, the wind on the walls, the long, steady, familiar weather of the night, going on the way it has gone on for hours, the way it will go on until morning. And then it stops, not all at once. The wind does not slam shut like a door. It eases, the way a voice that has been talking a long time eases at last into silence. The way a hand that has been pressing on something lets go by degrees so that you notice the weight of it only by its leaving. The long lean of the wind against the walls loosens and falls away and is gone. The snow which has been ticking at the glass since the early evening thins and slows and then simply stops, the last few flakes drifting down past the window with nothing at all behind them. And into the place where all that sound had been, a silence comes. It is not the small silence of an ordinary quiet room. It is the great silence of a mountain after snow, the silence of a whole white world that has finished, for now, with its falling, and lies under its new weight, not breathing, not stirring, holding still the way the land holds still in the deepest hour of the night, when even the cold has lain down. It is so complete that it seems to have a sound of its own, a high, faint ringing at the very edge of hearing, which is really only the sound of there being nothing left to hear. The man feels it before he understands it. The change reaches him down where he lies, the way a change in the weather reaches you even in sleep, and his eyes, which had nearly closed, open again, slowly, into the dark. For a moment he simply lies in the silence, the way you lie in very warm water, and lets it close over him. And as he lies there, the quiet begins to hand him back the smallest sounds, the ones the storm had been drowning all night long, the soft collapse of a coal settling in the grate, the almost sound of the birds breathing over by the fireplace, and under all of it, slow and patient, the blood moving in his own ears, the one steady drum that has never once stopped all his life and never once asked him to notice it. The storm had been so loud and so long that he had forgotten these were even here. The silence gives them back to him now, one at a time, like small coins returned. Once, far off, there is a single sound, a soft, heavy hush, the sound of a load of snow letting go of some high branch and falling to the snow below. And then the silence closes back over the place where it had been, deeper than before, the way still water closes over a dropped stone. And then nothing. Nothing at all. The room is different. It takes him a moment to find how. The fire is the same, low and red. The dark is the same dark. And then he sees it, the seam, the thin line in the ceiling, the gap between the two old roof boards, directly above where he lies. All night it has shown him a sliver of pale grey, the soft-lit grey of a sky full of falling snow. But the snow has stopped now, and somewhere far up in the dark the cloud has torn open, and what comes down through the seam now is not grey at all. It is black. A deep, clean, polished black, the black of a winter sky with nothing left between you and the far end of everything. And set into that black, framed in the thread thin gap as neatly as if the whole roof had been built around it, there is a single star. One star, burning in the crack of an old roof, hard and white and very far, the way stars are only on the coldest nights, when the air has frozen so clear that there is nothing left to soften them. No haze, no warmth, no breath of the world rising to blur them, only the black and the cold and the high white fire of it, unimaginably far away and perfectly, piercingly clear. He lies still and looks at it for a long time. The smallest gap in the world, no wider than a thread, and through it the largest thing there is. And because the star is there, he turns his head slowly on the pillow toward the window. He does not get up. There is no need. From where he lies he can see it, the single thick, uneven pane, its lower corners feathered now with frost, and beyond it the world the snow has made. It is unrecognizable, and it is the most familiar thing he knows. The cloud has drawn back off the peaks, and a high cold moon has come out somewhere above the cabin, and it has laid its light down over everything, and everything has given the light back. The snow on the mountain is not white now, it is silver and blue, and a faint impossible violet down in the hollows, glowing very softly with the moon's borrowed light, so that the whole slope seems lit gently from within. The pines stand black and heavy under their loads of snow, perfectly still, each one holding up its white weight without complaint, and over all of it the sky has thrown back its lid and shown, from one dark edge of the window to the other, more stars than a man can take in at a single looking, drifts of them, rivers of them, the far faint powder of the ones past counting, and here and there a near one burning steady and alone. And nothing moves out there. Nothing at all. There is not a track in the snow, not a branch stirring, not a single mark of anything living across the whole silver reach of it, only the new snow lying exactly where it fell, smoothing the world down to its soft first shapes, rounding off the woodpile and the path and the low stone wall into pale sleeping animals. It is the newest thing he has ever seen, and the oldest, both at the same time. It looks the way the world must have looked before there was ever anyone in it to look. It looks the way it will look, he thinks, a long time after. And up close, on the lower corners of the glass, the cold has been at its other work. Ferns and feathers of frost have grown across the pane in the night, fine and white and unthinkably intricate. A whole silver garden the frost makes and unmakes on the coldest nights, and that no eye was ever meant to see. He breathes out, once, slowly, and the small cloud of his own breath drifts up and thins in the firelight. Even in here, in the warm, the breath is visible, the warm meeting the cold, the way it meets at the seam, the way it meets everywhere the two of them touch. It is so beautiful that it stops his breath for a moment. Not the breath of fear, the other kind, the breath that catches when something is simply, suddenly, more than you were ready for. And he lies there warm beneath his blankets and looks at it and feels something move in him that he has no name for and does not need one. Because here is the thing he understands lying still with the star in the roof and the silver world at the window and the small fire breathing beside him. None of it is for him. The snow did not fall in order to be beautiful. The moon does not rise to be admired. The stars were burning in that black long before there was anyone on this mountain to look up at them, and they will go on burning long after, indifferent, magnificent, asking nothing, owing nothing, complete in themselves whether a single living eye ever turns toward them or not. The beauty of it is not a gift that was arranged for him. It is only what the world is, underneath, when you have gone quiet enough and stayed still enough and are awake enough to see it. And that somehow is the most moving thing of all. Not that the world is beautiful for him, that it is beautiful anyway, that it would have gone on being exactly this beautiful tonight if he had died in the autumn, if he had never been born at all. If no living thing had ever once climbed this high to look, and that he is here, all the same, warm, breathing, with his eyes still in his head, and enough of his heart still awake in him to be stopped by it. Out of all the long cold reaches of that sky, and all the dark centuries of that falling snow, he is here, tonight, awake, to see this one small, unrepeatable arrangement of moon and star and silver hill. A thing that has never been before, in just this way, and will never be again. He does not tell himself it would be a fine thing to live for. He does not put anything into words at all. He only lies there and lets the beauty come into him through his eyes the way the warmth came into the bird through his hands, and feels underneath the wonder, holding it up from below, a gratitude so quiet and so complete that it is very nearly the same thing as peace. To have been here at all, to have been awake for even a little of it, that, he understands, without understanding it, was never nothing. That was always the whole of what there was. And lying there, he becomes aware, gently, the way you become aware of warmth, of the one moving thing in all that still and silver cold. Himself, his own slow breath, clouding faintly even here in the firelit room, his own heart, doing its quiet, steady work. The one small engine that has carried him through every winter of his life and is carrying him through this one. The warmth of his own body, held close in the wool, a small kept pocket of summer in the deep heart of the winter night. Out there, everything is silver and still and flawless and cold. In here there is a fire and a bird and a man and the breath going in and going out, small and warm and brief and alive. He does not feel small against the size of it. He feels if anything, the way a single lit window feels far down in a great dark valley, not swallowed by all that dark, but somehow made to matter by it. The one warm thing in the cold, the one waking thing in the sleep of the world. The one place in all that frozen silver where something has chosen, quietly, to go on glowing. The moon has found its way into the room. While he lay there watching the sky, it must have climbed high enough to clear the eaves, because a pale path of its light lies now across the floorboards, cool and silver and perfectly still, reaching almost to the fireplace, to the very edge of the fold of cloth where the bird is sleeping, so that the small brown curve of it is rimmed, just faintly, in silver. The same moon that is silvering the whole sleeping mountain has reached all this way in, through one small window, to lay its light down gently on the one small creature he carried out of the cold. Two warm things, a man and a bird, in a small wooden room, lit by the same far light that lies on all the miles of snow. On the nights I can't sleep, wanderer, I used to get up and stand at the window, and it always took me by surprise how the world went on being beautiful out there, whether I was watching it or not, silver and turning and asking nothing of me. I used to find that a little lonely. I don't any more. I think it might be the most restful thing there is, that it is all still out there, lovely and going on, with no need of you awake to keep it so. You can let your eyes close. It will keep. His eyes go back, after a while, to the seam, to the star still burning in it. It is the same gap it has always been, the flaw he never once thought about across all those 1,000 nights. The cold came in through it. Earlier, half dreaming, he had followed it out across the dark country and found that it was a road, and that it led to her. And now it shows him the last thing it has to show him, the thing that was always true, and that he had simply never lain still long enough on a clear enough night to look up and find that this smallest of openings, this thread of a gap in an old plank roof, opens if you follow it all the way out onto everything, onto the whole black blazing sky, onto the farthest star there is. The room is small. He has always known the room was small. But a room with even the thinnest crack in it is not a closed room. A room with one gap in it, however small, is open, quietly, secretly, the whole night long, to the entire sky. The cold gets in that way, yes, but so does the starlight. It was the same gap the whole time, letting in both. He had only ever called it a flaw because he had never once lain still beneath it long enough to learn what it truly was. The thin, cold air comes down through it and touches his face, and he does not mind it now. He draws the blankets up a little, and the warmth holds, and the cold and the warmth meet somewhere in the air just above him, and make their old, quiet peace the way they have done. Somewhere or other, every night of his life, the fire settles in the grate. The bird breathes on by the fireplace. And far off, very far, the wind is beginning again in the high pines. He can hear it returning, gathering itself away up the mountain for the long second half of the night. But it is a long way off yet, and it does not trouble him. Let it come. The storm can have the night back soon enough. He has seen what the silence had to show him, and it was enough, and more than enough, and he can carry it down with him now. Into sleep his eyes grow heavy again. The star blurs softly in the seam, and doubles and swims, the way a far light does when you are almost gone. The silver world at the window loses the hard edges of its hills, and the man lets it, all of it, begin to dissolve. The star, the snow, the moon on the slope, the small warm room and the small warm life in it, going soft and going dim, not lost, only set gently down, the way you set down something precious in a place where you already know it will still be in the morning. The fire rises, the breath rises, the fire settles, and he lets it all the way go. And then the storm comes back. He has been hearing it return for a while, in the half-listening way of a man going down toward sleep, has heard it gathering itself away up the mountain, through the high pines, the way you hear a tide turning somewhere out in the dark and know, without opening your eyes, that the water is on its way back. And now it arrives. The first gust comes down off the peak and hits the cabin like a shoulder set against a door, and then another behind it, and the brief clear silence the snow had given him folds up and is gone, and the long roar of the weather closes back over the small wooden room. It is worse than before. He can hear that it is worse. This is the deep heart of the night now, the hour the whole storm has been climbing toward, when the wind comes down with nothing held back, and the snow drives flat and hard against the glass, and the cabin itself seems to lean, very slightly, under the weight of it. The fire ducks and gutters in the draught that finds its way down the chimney, and then stands up again. The old beams take up their slow complaint. Somewhere out in the dark, a laden branch lets go at last and comes down with a muffled crash, and the wind takes the sound and scatters it. The cold leans in at every seam and edge of the place, testing, the way it has tested all night long, looking patiently for the one way in it has not yet found. If he lets himself listen, and tonight for once he finds he can listen without flinching, there is not one sound out there but many, layered and braided together into the single great voice of the storm. The high, long howl of the wind coming over the ridge. Under it, the deeper boom and buffet of the gusts striking the wall. The dry hiss and rattle of snow flung against the glass in handfuls. The creak and slow settle of the old timbers, taking the weight and giving it back. The hollow flute of the wind across the mouth of the chimney, and the soft surge of the fire that answers it. And far beneath all of it, almost felt now rather than heard, the long low pressure of the whole mountain's weather, leaning steadily on the small bright box of the room. It is a vast sound. It is the sound of the world being entirely, hugely itself, with no thought of him in it anywhere at all, and there is something in that tonight that is almost restful to lie inside of. And the man lies still beneath his blankets and listens to it and is not afraid. The cold is very close tonight. He can feel it at the window, a few feet away, a steady, patient pull. The warmth of the room bleeding slowly toward the glass and the glass giving it up to the night. He can feel it coming down, thin and constant, through the seam above him. He can feel the very line of it across his shoulders, where the blankets end and the colder air begins. All night the cold has been pressing in at every edge of the warm, and all night the warm has held its small ground, not by pushing back, but simply by being kept, by the fire, by the wool, by the slow steady furnace of his own blood. The two of them have come, somewhere in the dark hours, to the kind of truce that is no one's victory. The cold does not stop being cold, and the warm does not stop being warm, and the thin line between them holds and holds and holds. That is the thing that has changed, though he could not tell you at what hour of the night it changed, or name the moment it came over him. Earlier, and on 1,000 earlier nights, across a whole long life of winters, some part of him would have lain rigid through an hour like this one, braced against it, jaw set, listening at the storm the way you listen at a closed door in an empty house, waiting for the one sound that means it is finally easing, finally turning, finally almost done. Waiting, in other words, for the night to be over, and so spending the whole of the night somewhere other than in it, spending it out ahead of himself, in a morning that had not come yet, while the actual hours slipped by, unlived in the dark. He knows that old bracing the way you know an old ache, the particular tiredness of it, the way a body can hold itself ready against a thing for hours and come to morning more worn down by the readiness than by the cold itself. He had thought in those years that the bracing was a kind of strength. He knows better now. It was only fear wearing the face of strength, and it had never once in a whole long life of winters made a single storm a minute shorter. He is not doing that now. He notices it the way you notice you have set down a weight only once you are already walking on without it, that he is not waiting for the storm to break. He is not listening for the turn. He is not holding any part of himself in reserve against the moment it will be over. Because, and this is the quiet thing that has come to him somewhere down in the warm dark, he no longer needs it to be over. It will not be over for a long time yet. He knows that, and the knowing does not trouble him. The storm has hours left in it. It will blow till dawn, and likely well past dawn. It owes him nothing, and will give him nothing, and will end, when it ends, for reasons entirely its own, that have nothing to do with him, or his fire, or his small warm endurance down here beneath it. There is no one out in that dark coming to him. There is no road open up the mountain. There is no light he could hang in the window that any living eye would ever see. No help on its way. No hand reaching from somewhere outside to lift the night up off him and carry it away. And here, in the worst hour of the storm, he understands a thing he has been most of his life not quite understanding, that he has not in truth been waiting for that at all. He thinks of the fire, of how he has tended it all night, fed it, banked it, gone out into the cold and carried the wood in for it, kept it alive through every hour the way he kept the bird alive, with his hands and his attention and his refusal to let it go out. And he sees now lying here something he had never once looked at squarely in all the winters he has done it, that some part of him had always kept a fire the way a man keeps a lamp burning in a window, half believing, without ever saying the words to himself, that it was a signal, that a fire was a thing you held up against the dark, so that someone somewhere might see it and know that you were here and come, that the keeping of it earned its meaning from the chance, however far, however faint, of being found. But there is no one to see this fire. There never was, on a night like this high, this far. It throws its small moving light against the inside of 4 old wooden walls, and the walls give it back, and no eye in all the wide dark world will ever fall upon it. And it is not, he understands, one flicker the less for that. It does not burn lower for being unseen. It does not warm him less because no one is coming. The light it makes is precisely the same light, whether it is a signal flung out to the whole sleeping world, or a small-kept thing held only for itself, and a sleeping bird, and a man too far up the mountain for anyone alive to reach. It was never a signal. That is the turn the whole long night has been carrying him quietly toward. The warmth was never being held up and out, waiting on someone else to arrive and make it count. It was the warmth itself that was the thing, the entire time, the keeping of it, the choosing of it, the small, stubborn daily refusal to let the fire die. He had thought all his life that he was holding a light against the dark in the hope of rescue. He sees now that the holding was the rescue. That a man who keeps a fire through a night like this one, for no reason and no witness and no hope at all of being seen, is not after all waiting to be saved. He is already doing the only saving there has ever been. And once he has stopped waiting for the storm to end, a strange and simple thing happens. The storm stops being his enemy. It is only the winter. He hears her say it, somewhere far back inside him, in the warm lamplit kitchen of all those years ago. There it goes again. And he understands it now the whole way down. In a way he could repeat in the kitchen, but could not yet live. That you do not fight a winter. You cannot win against a storm. There is nothing there to win against. It is not for him, and it is not against him. It is only weather, vast and old and wholly indifferent, doing in the dark what it has done since long before there were men on mountains to lie awake beneath it. The fight, all this time, was never with the storm at all. The fight was only ever with his own wanting it to be other than it was. And he lets that go too, the last of the things he sets down tonight, and the heaviest of them. He stops wanting the night to be other than it is. He stops needing the cold to relent, or the wind to fall, or the morning to come any faster than it is going to come. He lets the storm be exactly what it is, out there in the dark, doing exactly what it does, and he lies here, in the warm, being exactly what he is. The two of them in the one night, the cold and the man no longer at war because one of them has quietly and without surrender simply stopped fighting. This is the thing the cold could never take from him, though it took the woodpile, and the road, and the feeling from his hands, and would in the end, given long enough, take everything a man can be made to give. It could not take the way he chose to meet it. It could not reach in past the walls and the fire and the blankets, into the small dim space behind his eyes, and decide on his behalf whether he would spend this night clenched and waiting and afraid, or open and unhurried and at peace. That was always his. That was the one narrow ground the storm could roar across all night and never once set foot upon, the quiet place where a man, and only that man, decides what a night is going to be. He has decided. He decided it, it seems, hours ago, without once noticing he was deciding, somewhere out at the woodpile, the moment his cold hands moved of their own accord toward a small frozen thing in the snow. The night is not a thing to be survived with the jaw set. It is only a night, and he is here inside it, warm, with a fire and a small saved life, and the nearness of a love, and the after-image of a whole sky full of stars still resting behind his eyes. And that is not a poor way to pass a storm. That, he thinks, if he thinks anything at all now, this far down, is not a poor way to pass a life. The fire burns low and steady and unbothered. The wind goes on, and little by little the storm, which is louder now than it has been at any hour of the night, grows quieter in him than it has ever been, until it is hardly there at all, until it is only a sound the dark is making, somewhere far off on the other side of the warm. The room has gone very small and very simple. Everything that is not essential has slipped away under the roar, folded down into the dark and forgotten. His hearing has drawn in close until the storm is only a wall of sound at the far edge of things, and the near sounds, the fire, the breath, are the whole of what is left to attend to. His eyes have all but closed. The cold edges of the room have drawn back and softened. What is near is warm, what is warm is near, and everything else has gone away to the far side of a great, soft, deepening distance. There is no woodpile now, no buried path, no mountain, no morning he must hold on for. There is no world beyond the walls that he needs, tonight, to carry. There is the fire, there is the good weight of the blankets, there is the slow, deep, even tide of his own breath. He can feel the whole warm length of himself there beneath the wool, the heat his own body has made and the blankets have kept, a small steady warmth gathered and held against all the miles of cold outside. He is, he understands, without any pride in the thought, the warmest thing for a long way in any direction, warmer than the snow, warmer than the far white stars, one small furnace of a living body, banked like the fire, burning low and faithful through the dark. There is the small sleeping bird in its fold of cloth by the fireplace. It has slept through the whole return of the storm, through the worst hour of the worst of it, untroubled, its small head tucked down out of sight, its small breath going in and out and in, because it is warm and it is sheltered, and that, for a living thing, is very nearly the beginning and the end of all there is to ask. He watches it a moment in the low red light. There is no lesson in it that he goes looking for. There is only the plain fact of it, a small warm thing, asleep in a storm, which is, when you come all the way down to it, just about the most that any of them are tonight, the bird and the fire and the man, small warm things keeping through the dark in a very large cold night. And there is the seam overhead, grey again now, the star gone back behind the snow, the thin gap doing once more the only thing it has ever done, letting a little of the cold come quietly down into the warm. And there is the man, awake and warm and unafraid, lying in the very middle of all of it. He draws the blankets up to his chin. The warmth holds. Out there the storm does its worst, and it is a great worst, the full black weight of the winter night, and it does not matter. In here the fire keeps, the breath keeps, the small heart by the fireplace keeps. And the man lies in the deep heart of the night, with the last of his burdens set down, and finds that what remains, when everything that can be laid down has been laid down, is not fear, and is not cold, and is not loneliness. What remains is warm. What remains is his. What remains is enough. He feels himself going now, the good going, the going down he has earned across the whole long night. The roar of the storm thins to a far grey sound, like a sea heard from somewhere far inland. The firelight on the beams goes soft, and then goes dim. The seam blurs in the dark above him. And the man, warm in the middle of the worst night of the winter, with nothing left in his hands to hold, and nothing left in him that needs holding, lets the whole of it carry him down. The fire rises, the breath rises, the fire settles, and he lets it, the storm, the waiting, the long cold wait of the whole night, all the way, go. And so the man sleeps. It happened the way it always happens, in the end, not as a step taken, but as a border crossed without his noticing, somewhere in the middle of an ordinary breath. One moment he was lying there, warm and awake and unafraid, watching the firelight move along the beams, and the next, the watching had simply loosened and let go and become something softer than watching, and he had gone down past the place where the watching is, into the deep still water underneath it, where there is no storm and no cold and no long night left to bear at all. His breathing is slow now and even and entirely his own. His face, in the low red light, has lost the last of whatever the day had drawn into it, gone smooth and easy and years younger than it was an hour ago. The blankets rise and fall and rise. And whatever he is doing now, down there below the reach of the weather, whatever warm and lamplit rooms he is walking through, whatever cold hands he is holding once again in his own, it is his, and it is peaceful, and we will not follow him into it. Some doors you close softly, from the outside, and let the sleeper keep what is behind them. The fire has burned down to its patient coals, red and golden breathing, throwing its last low warmth out into the room. The bird sleeps on in its fold of cloth by the fireplace, a small brown curve, lifting and falling with the smallest breath there is. And the storm goes on outside, as it will go on for hours yet, hurling itself at the walls, heaping the snow against the door. But it has lost him. It roars at a man who is no longer listening. It presses at walls he is no longer bracing against. It hunts, the way it has hunted all night, for the one way into a small warm room whose one kept light it was never, in all its long fury, going to put out. Inside, the room itself seems to have gone to sleep around him. The cup on the shelf, the worn pale table, the tin that holds the small kept things, all the plain and patient objects of a long life, holding still in the low red light, keeping their quiet watch over the sleeping man the way they have kept it 1,000 nights before. And the line of light is still there, above the place where he lies, the seam. Let me tell you about it, wanderer, now that he is sleeping and cannot hear. And it is only the two of us awake in all of this. That thin thread of a gap in an old plank roof, the one I have been quietly turning your eyes toward all night long. I want to tell you what it was, because I think it is the truest thing in the whole of this story. When the night began, it was a floor. Only that. A place where two old boards did not quite meet, where the cold got in. The kind of small broken thing a person can lie beneath 1,000 nights and never once make peace with, because it is the very place the dark comes through, the one fault in an otherwise good roof. He had noticed it 1,000 times across the years and thought nothing of it, except, perhaps, that he ought one day to mend it. And then, when he was halfway down towards sleep, it stopped being a floor and became a road, a pale road running out across the whole dark sleeping country, over the rivers and the silent farms, all the way to the one lit window at the far end of everything, where someone he had loved his whole life was sitting up late, warming her cold hands. He did not have to rise and cross the cold to reach her. The road ran out through the seam, and he followed it with his eyes half closing, and he was with her, and he never once left the fire. And then, when the storm fell still in the deep of the night, the same small gap became the smallest of windows onto the largest of things, the whole black blazing sky, the farthest star there is, reaching down through that thread of an opening to rest, white and clear and unimaginably far on the upturned face of a man in his bed. The same crack. The cold came in that way. and the road came that way, and the starlight. It was never only the floor he had taken it for all those years. It was the one place in the whole tight roof that was open, and a thing that is open lets in everything. The cold, yes, the long ache of missing her, yes, the great indifferent dark, yes, but also her, also the star, also the entire night sky he would never once have seen if the roof had been perfect and closed and whole. The floor was the way through. It was the floor in the end that let the heavens in. And there is one thing more it showed him at the very last, in the worst hour, when he stopped waiting to be found. All night he had half believed that his fire was a signal, a light he was holding up against the dark so that someone, somewhere, might see it and know he was there and come for him. And all night no one came, and no one saw, and the fire burned on exactly the same in the empty dark, unseen, unhelped, undimmed, until he understood, lying there, that the being seen had never been the point of it at all, that a fire kept through a long night, for no witness and no rescue and no hope of being found, is not a signal. It is a beacon, not the kind that calls for help. The other kind, the kind that is simply lit and tended and kept faithful through the dark, that burns low through the very worst of the night, not so that it will be saved, but because burning and warming and holding on is the whole of what it is for. A beacon in the snow that needs no eye upon it to be a beacon. A small warm light high on a black mountain that the entire vast cold of the winter leaned upon all night long and tested at every edge and could not put out. That was the man. That was what he had quietly become, lying still beneath his blankets while the storm did its worst. Not someone waiting for the night to lift, but the one warm kept thing in all that dark, the light that does not go out. He had been carrying it the whole time, the way he had carried the small frozen bird in out of the cold against his chest, a warmth the storm could not reach, because he had never once set it down in a place where the storm could find it. At the very beginning of all this, wanderer, I asked you a question, and I promised you I would not answer it. I told you only the ending could. Well, we are at the ending now. So let me give it back to you, gently, the way you hand something back to someone who is already half asleep. When the cold has taken everything the cold can take, the warmth from your hands, the road home, the people who used to sit across the table from you, what is the reason that lets you bear the night? It is not that the night grows shorter. It does not. It is not that someone is coming. Most nights no one is. It is not that you win. In the end, against the cold, no one has ever won against the cold. It was never a fight that could be won, and the trying only ever wore us out before morning. It is that you have something to keep. A small good thing you did once, in the dark, that no one will ever know about, and that warmed you anyway, and warms you still. A face you carry, and talk to, on the nights the sleep won't come, a love the years and the distance and even the losing could not take out of you, because you never kept it anywhere the cold could reach. A night you happened to be awake for, when the snow stopped and the sky tore open and the whole world was, for no reason at all, almost unbearably beautiful, and you were there, with your eyes still in your head, to see it. And beneath all of it, holding it up, the last thing, the thing they must take everything else before they can even reach. the freedom to choose. In the small dim room behind your eyes, how you will meet a night you cannot change. That is the why that lets you bear any night. Not a rescue, not a mourning, only a warmth you have decided to keep and the quiet daily keeping of it. He bore the whole long night on that, and so, I have come to believe, can very nearly anyone, almost anyhow, on almost any night, so long as there is one small kept warmth at the center of it that the dark is simply not allowed to touch. Can I tell you why I really keep telling you these, wanderer? It is only us now, so I can say it. I have my own long nights. I have my own seam in the roof, my own face that I keep, my own small fire I am not always certain I can hold lit. And I found, somewhere along the way, that on the very worst of those nights, if I could tell it as a story, the cold and the keeping, and the warmth that holds through till morning, I could believe it again myself. That is all this has ever been. Me keeping my own fire by handing you a little of the light. It changed me. I have hoped every night that it might reach you too. So here is what I would leave with you, as you lie there in your own warm dark, wherever you are, however far up your own mountain this night has carried you. You do not have to wait for it to break, either, whatever storm is leaning on your walls tonight, and I do not know what it is. I only know that something brought you here, to a quiet voice in the dark, at this late hour. You do not have to lie there braced against it, jaw set, listening for the turn, spending the whole night out ahead of yourself in a morning that has not come. You can let it be the night it is. You can stop fighting the winter. You have your own small warm things, kept somewhere the cold has never once reached, a kindness, a face, a beauty you were awake for, and you have the fire you are keeping at this very moment, simply by being here, simply by breathing, simply by being the one warm waking thing in your own dark and quiet room. That is enough. It turns out it was always, all along, enough. So let it go now, the way he let it go. Let the day go, let the storm go, let the long cold weight of everything you carried in with you tonight grow heavy, and then heavier, and then set itself down. Feel the bed take your weight, the way the ground takes a stone that has finally come to rest. Let it begin in the places that have been holding on the longest. Let the jaw loosen and the small tired muscles around the eyes. Let the shoulders come down from where they have been braced. You can let them drop now, slowly, all at once, the way she used to let hers drop at the stove when the warmth finally reached her. Let the arms go heavy, and then the hands, the fingers uncurling from whatever they were keeping hold of. Let the long muscles of the back give up their holding, one after another, all the way down, until there is nothing left in you that is still keeping watch. And as it lets go, let the sounds go soft as well. The voice you have been following can go soft now too. You do not need to hold on to the words anymore, only the warmth underneath them. Let your own room grow as small and as simple as his, just the warmth, and the weight of you in the bed, and the slow tide of the breath, going out and out and out. There is nothing here that needs your guarding tonight. The fire will keep. The morning will come on its own, without your help, exactly when it was always going to come. And you can rest now. You have kept enough today. You can let the night be the night and go down into the warm of it and rest. In the cabin, the fire settles one last time, low and gold and unhurried, and the small light of it moves slowly along the walls. The bird breathes on in its fold of cloth. The man sleeps deep below the storm, a small warm beacon the whole night could not put out. And the thin line of light waits quietly in the dark above him, not a floor now, not any more, and never really, the whole time, only the place where the sky comes in. The cold still comes down through it, thin and constant, the way it always has, but so does the light. It always did. You have only to lie still enough and long enough beneath it. The fire rises, the breath rises, the fire settles, and everything. The storm, the night, the long keeping, the whole vast and beautiful weight of being alive and warm and here, lets go all the way and goes down softly into sleep. And that is where I'll leave you, wanderer, warm and held and almost gone. You don't have to listen anymore. You don't have to do anything at all. I'll stay a while here by the fire and keep it for the both of us. There is nothing left tonight that needs you awake. Whatever you carried in, you have set it down. Whatever the cold took from you, it did not take the warm thing, the one you have been keeping all along, the one it was never allowed to touch. That one is still yours. It will still be yours in the morning. So rest now. Let the fire burn low. Let the snow keep falling softly on a world that is sleeping. And let yourself go all the way down into the warm of it, the way he did, with nothing left to guard and nothing left to fear. It's Ufan. I'm here. Sleep well. The fire settles. The breath lets go. Good night, wanderer. Good night.